Hi, my name is Dave. Today we're going to look at some vintage Takahashi accessories that might have been used for astrophotography. The astrophotography was a very big deal back in the 70s and 80s, especially in Japan. But astrophotography was challenging because we were using film back in those days. So anyway, we're going to take a look at some of the accessories that Takahashi designed that may have been useful, may have not been so useful, but some of the accessories they sold. Okay, for starters, you could just take a camera like this, mount it piggyback. Some people would want to try putting the camera right at the back of the telescope to see if you can get something that way. So let's see what you have to do that. First of all, you remove the tailpiece here. Now for your camera, this is a good old vintage Nikon film camera. That's what you would have had in those days. You have to have the special T adapter, very much like modern DSLR cameras at least. You get that on. Now you've got this, and you need a way to attach it there. There's a device here. This is a TS015. It's a camera angle adapter, and it's designed to go right on here. It's got a knurled knob here so that you can lock this down at any point that you want. So you put this on. This then goes on here. So now I've got my camera attached and I can change the angle, tighten it down with that knurled knob. So if I want to frame my picture this way or that way or whatever I want to do. There is one little hitch to that. Whenever you change this angle, you're going to very slightly, microscopically change the focus. So you're going to have to refocus every time you do that. Well, now you've got your camera attached to the telescope. You've got 500 millimeters of focal length with this telescope. That's a lot of focal length. You're going to have to guide that. So Takahashi, in their infinite wisdom and just really needing to have your money, it came up with this device here. For the TS65P at least, they've got this thing. This little deal here attaches to a purpose-built, this is what's holding the finder. Now you've got a place to put a guide scope. Here's a 40 millimeter Takahashi guide scope. You use a Barlow and a special guiding eyepiece. This has a really fancy reticle in it. Now all you have to do is mount this on here. Now you're all set. Can you imagine trying to do guided astrophotography with this thing? Now here's something really fun. This is the TS01001 camera adapter. Now this is basically very similar to the previous one, but look at all the fancy goodies on this thing. Here's the instruction manual. Oh, very complicated, very, very complicated. This could be used to do eyepiece projection. The way this works for eyepiece projection is like this. This, of course, attaches to the camera. There's even a filter drawer in here. This is just a place where you could install a filter. Probably just a colored filter in those days. We didn't have anything fancy back in those days. Now here's where it gets really interesting. In here, inside here, this thing slides. You're going to use this with something like this 12 millimeter ortho. Put the eyepiece in here. So the eyepiece becomes effectively kind of a Barlow. You're just using eyepiece projection here. So it's kind of like an afocal arrangement, but it's much more stable. So you can move this back and forth and lock it down and change the distance between the eyepiece and the camera plane. In addition to that, this rotates to close so it keeps the light out, keeps any extraneous light out of there. So now that you've got this thing assembled, this whole thing screws on to the back here. So now we're all set. All we have to do is lock this down. We can focus it, do that sort of secondary focus, and then we're going to use the primary focuser as well. So you're going to use the combination of both of those things to get the image focused. And then you close this thing up, go ahead and shoot your nice 15-minute astrophotograph. And good luck, because you're going to need it. Using this camera eyepiece projection device, it turns out that if you set this up, and I've tried it, you set this up and try to use it with this telescope, it ends up that your focus is way out here and the magnification is off the scale. It's going to be impossible. For terrestrial use, I would say impossible, and for astronomical use, quite impossible. This device is just not that useful, at least as an eyepiece projection device. In addition to this arrangement, there are a couple of other ways you could do things here. By removing this section and just having this part, you now have a filter drawer, and you can just attach this right here. I hope you've enjoyed having a look at these Takahashi vintage accessories from the 1970s, 1980s. Thank you for watching.